All right. Thank you, son. Let's frame this up, man. We got a lot going on here. All right. All right. All right. How's everyone doing? This isn't our first live stream, is it? Is this our first live stream, John, of the new year? I think we've done one before, but I just got back from a trip to Naples, Florida to see my folks. Just getting settled back in here, and I hope everybody's doing well. Everybody's having a great new year so far. Just did a podcast with Tom Looney today, and we teased our next one, which is going to be about the media Armageddon of 2024. Stephen A. versus Jason Whitlock, McAfee, Jimmy Kimmel, Aaron Rodgers, everybody fighting and loud. And I'm a pretty loud guy, but not at home. My dog right there. My wife's cooking dinner for my son who just got home from work. Nothing loud about this, but the pace of the YouTube live stream I enjoy for a lot of reasons, because I like the pace of it and I can do what I want to do. And we can get into the chat. So I always like to see who's the first person that I can acknowledge in the chat. So please go into the chat and let's see who we got here. And that's Holla's Arena, if I could see that right. Let's go Raider Nation. And we're going to make a hire, I think, tomorrow. I don't know. I don't know who the hire is. I don't know. I hope it's Antonio Pierce. I hope it's Champ. It should be. Maybe that's what's going to happen. And if it does, you can catch me on all the Raiders platforms. I don't do a lot of Raiders on this YouTube stream because I do a lot of Raiders all the time locally in Vegas and the podcast work that I'm doing with them. So I don't want to make this too Raiders centric, because I want to do what I think I do best, is talk sports nationally about everything that's happening. So we got a lot happening here. Appreciate people jumping in, and we'll get going here on what I want to talk about, because I got a lot to say. And our podcast is brought to you, and our live stream, by Modelo. Now, this is a dripping cold, ice cold Modelo that I took from my outside cooler. You know, I got beer in my outside in my backyard in a refrigerator, but then I got a cooler, a Modelo cooler. You see the Modelo boombox behind me? Let's get the Modelo boombox right there. Look at that. Modelo. That thing's like the greatest sound system I've ever had. I'm dead serious. But this Modelo is so ice cold. And hey, get into the chat. Has everybody had a dry January? Not here. I've had a few this month because I just got back from a road trip, played 5 rounds of golf with my dad, my brother-in-law, my nephew. So we did have some Modelos. And you might have been following me. I had the airport trip from hell. So I had to have a couple of Modelos in the airport going out to Naples, Florida. So thanks to Modelo, the Fighting Spirit, the #1 beer in America. How proud am I to have a podcast and a live stream? And it's sponsored by Modelo. #1 beer in America, everybody. I don't know how long you've been drinking beer, if you're legal to drink beer or you're up there, you've tried other ones. This beer is fantastic because it tastes good. So that's my Modelo. It's not a plug. I love Modelo. So let me get that road trip out of the way that I just had. Oh, my God. I flew to see on Tuesday, I flew to see my mom and dad, who are 85 and 84, in Naples, Florida. And the airport closest to them is RSW, which is code for Fort Myers. So my wife took me to the airport at 5 in the morning with my golf clubs. Southwest Airlines. And I've always flown Southwest whenever I can. They're normally not my top choice, but one of my top 2, because I fly A-list preferred. I get in the front of the plane, and it's usually pretty good. The reason why the airline is called Southwest is because they're not good at Southeast. So my flight went through Love Field. Remember Love Field, the Kennedy assassination? Love Field. There's 2 major airports. The hub for Southwest is Love Field. And the big airport's DFW. And I've had a lot of bad luck in that airport. So I got up at 5 in the morning. My flight was at 6:30 a.m. Got on the flight, got to Dallas, got off the plane, looked at my flight, and then they just started clipping me. 20-minute delays, 40-minute, hour, 2 hours, 3-hour delay. I went to the nice lady. The people who work at airports are amazing. I mean, they put up with a lot of shit. and a lot of pissed off people. And I went up to the lady and I said to her, "What's going on?" I'm looking and I'm seeing that the airplane that I'm supposed to be on is in Houston. And she says, "Yeah, it hasn't left Houston yet. It's a ground hold." And I said, "Well, why aren't you telling everybody in the airport that? Why are you telling us it's a delay every 20 minutes? And then she realized I knew the scam. The scam is they just can't tell you the truth. They can't come over the loudspeaker and say, "Hey, the plane that's coming here, which is not far from Houston to Dallas to take me to Florida, is being held on the ground in Houston." They can't tell you that like adults. And I had a 6-hour delay. I've had flights canceled. I've never had a delay of 6 hours. Anybody in the chat know that? 6-hour delay. So instead of getting into Naples at 5 and having dinner with my parents, which is the first day of the trip, I got in at 11 at night and lost a day getting there. And then I came back. My flight was this past Saturday, and my flight was canceled as I was on the golf course. And I looked at my phone on the 18th hole and it said canceled. And my wife came to the rescue. She clicked on the app. She rebooked me. How about this? Fort Myers, Florida to Atlanta. Atlanta to Chicago. Don't change planes. Thank God it was minus 20 below, 0 with a minus 20 wind chill. They had to de-ice the plane in Chicago. I got into Vegas at 1 in the morning, and then I got off the plane and my golf clubs were not there. They didn't have my clubs. I had to go back the next day and get them. But I had a great time seeing my mom and dad. And that's what matters most. Matters most. But man, for everyone in the chat who travels, for everybody who travels, man, for a living, I traveled for a living most of my career. For 17 years, I traveled from Vegas to Oakland for the Raiders, either Sunday, game day, Tuesday, or both. I never had a problem. You know why? Because Southwest travels west. Travels unbelievable if you're going from LA or Burbank to San Diego or Oakland or San Francisco. Or how about Phoenix, where my son goes to ASU? Travel's beautiful. So the moral of the story is, whenever I go east, because I'm from New York, no more Southwest. No. Whenever I go east, I'll go JetBlue, I'll go Delta, American Airlines, United. I cannot give Southwest 2 days of my life because the weather was cold. There wasn't a hurricane. There wasn't some snafu like 2 years ago, a year ago with Southwest. It was just a little cold in Dallas. So they had to cancel everything. So let's get that out of the way. That's done. I don't want to sound like I'm just pouting all the time with travel. I'm actually giving the people at the airport a lot of credit for putting up with people. And I think I'm pretty nice to people at airports. I know how hard their job is. But God, if you had to work a 12-hour shift at an airport and have to reroute passengers all over America all day, that is not an easy job. I have an easy job. I talk sports on the radio. That's the toy department of sports, talking sports on radio. It's very easy to do. It's a very easy job. But man, working in an airport is tough. All right, seeing more people here in the chat as we get going here. So first thing, the most important thing, I need to take the pain. As Tom Berenger said in the movie Platoon, my all-time favorite movie. I picked the Cowboys to win the Super Bowl in August because I got to make a pick. I don't get a chance to change my pick every 2 weeks like some do on radio and TV. They have their hierarchy. They have their updated every week. They change their teams. I don't do that. I picked the Cowboys. Why? Dak Prescott had a Pro Bowl year. They have Micah Parsons. They had an elite, I thought, offensive line, really good defense. They had a cornerback who broke the all-time record for pick six in a season. I mean, they're a good team. Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl. Don't tell me he's a bum. I know he's trending downward, but he could coach. And Dallas didn't lose a game at home. And Dallas got the 2 seed. It wasn't like they screwed it up and there was a 6 seed. They got the 2 seed. They had 2 home games. And Green Bay came in and kicked their ass. And I said this about the Packers. I gave them no chance to win that game. For all the Green Bay fans who are here, no chance. I don't care if it's 9 points, 10 points, 7 or 7 in the hook. No chance to win the game because Dallas is at home. So I watched the game, and here's my analysis. The Cowboys were not prepared. They were outcoached. Very important. Matt LaFleur outcoached Two coaches, Mike McCarthy and the guy Dan Quinn upstairs, who's supposed to get the head coaching job in Seattle, and now his resume has a big black stain on it. So forget about that. So Matt LaFleur's staff had their team ready on the road, not at Lambeau, in Dallas, to outplay Mike McCarthy, and Mike McCarthy wasn't prepared. On the broadcast, they said it. Okay, Greg Olson said it. They're not lining up right. They don't look like they have a vision. And then all of a sudden, Dak Prescott's playing, and he can't throw the football from me to you. Look at me, right here. Little 10-yarder, little 6-yarder, couldn't throw it. Why was that? I'll tell you why. He was nervous. The pressure was too much on Dak to win. For Jerry, who's in the best suite in the house, the pressure got to Dak. I didn't think that would happen, because on Dak's jersey, he has a Walter Payton cape, Man of the Year logo. He's a Pro Bowler. He's one of the highest paid football players of all time. I didn't think Dak would be intimidated by the game, and he was. And Jordan Love wasn't. Now, I want to ask you in the chat here, because this is really important. Was that a case of Green Bay having nothing to lose? You always hear that. They're playing with house money. I live in Vegas. Oh, they're playing with house money. They have nothing to lose, so they played freer. They played free, and Dallas played tight. Yeah, I think that had a lot to do with it. I do. And then the fact that they got blown out and Dallas couldn't come back into the game because they couldn't run the ball anymore because they were down so much they became pass predictable. And did you see the body language of CeeDee Lamb and Dak? Woo-hoo-hoo! They looked like they didn't even want to look at each other anymore. What the hell's that all about? You're the 2 seed with 2 potential home games, and Dak is not on the same page with CeeDee Lamb? How is that even possible? How is that possible? So Dallas gets blown out, and I was thinking that Dallas was good enough to go into Santa Clara and beat the 49ers. I was wrong. I'm here on the YouTube Live to tell you about it, and here's my final takeaway. You have to fire Mike McCarthy. You have to. Good man. I have his picture. I have his picture in one of my photo albums. Mike McCarthy did a favor for me and friends and Jay Glazer when my mentor, Andrew Ashwood, was dying of terminal cancer. Mike McCarthy came to an event to be there with Andrew, the Packer fan. I could never say anything bad about Mike McCarthy personally. Great guy. He's out. And here's my takeaway on Dak. Dak's under contract for 1 more year. You cannot give him another contract. You can't. Don't tell me you can. You cannot. I don't care that he's a Pro Bowler. He can't win. He can't win a game, let alone the big game. So you let him play out the contract. I know the cap hit money. I have it. It's a big cap hit. Jerry treats him like a son. But the other issue is everybody says, well, you give Dak a new contract, but you lowball him. You give him less money. No. Dak is done. He's a good player. He could go to my Raiders here in Vegas. He can go to the Jets after Aaron Rodgers retires. He can go to the Giants because he's a lot better than Daniel Jones, but he can no longer play in Dallas. He can't play in Dallas anymore because the fans paid too much money. They're America's team. You cannot put up with that shit anymore where you have a 2 seed or a home game and Dak can't win it. We've seen the movie. It's over. A couple of people jump in on this topic and want to jump in on Mike McCarthy. Let's jump in here. Okay, McCarthy should be let go, and Belichick immediately wins 13 to 15 games next year. I don't think he wins 13 to 15. Mikey O, 70% of all the money bet on the Cowboys. That's why Vegas survives. Mikey in Staten, Italy, good to see you. You're 100% right. Dan Litchak, JT, shout out from Jersey. Ace Boogie, fire Mike McCarthy and hire Bill. Raiders hire AP. That could happen here. And when you get into this, this is from, it looks like Wheelie. He was an all-pro this year. Yes, you have to give him a contract. Sucks for Dallas because he isn't truly that good. No, you don't have to give him a contract. You don't give him any new money. I just watched the Raiders do that with Derek Carr. Raiders gave Carr an extension. They watched him for 1 year. Josh McDaniels came in and said, no, you're not the answer. You're gone. No more new money. We'll eat part of the contract. You got a no trade clause. We're moving on from you, like it or not. You can't give Dak Prescott new money. It's over. None of this garbage about we'll take a pay cut. Why? So Dak goes from making $55 million and he plays for $38 million. And what's that going to do? Save you some money, but you don't win? It's going on 30 years for the Dallas Cowboys, everybody. Dak had his chance. Someone else needs to come in. You tell me Jerry Jones can't find the next Jordan Love? He can't trade up for the next C.J. Stroud? He can't trade up to get Drake May? And maybe not Caleb Williams. But Jerry can do whatever he wants to do. He's a riverboat gambler. He's an oil man. He's a risk taker. Jerry will go out there and get a quarterback, I promise you. And what about Trey Lance? Would you give Trey Lance a reset, unplug him and plug him back in? He looks a lot like Dak. He's big and strong. Well, here's Chad Lee. JT, do you feel that the Cowboys did not lose Diggs earlier in the year to injury? Their secondary would have performed better. Absolutely, Chad. That's the reason I picked the Cowboys to win the Super Bowl, is exactly your comments. Diggs as one of the cornerbacks. Their defense is loaded. Stephon Gilmore. I mean, come on. They're really good. So what would you do? And a lot of people have been telling me, like, Dan, Jordan Love sat behind a great quarterback for 2 years. That's great. So did Steve Young with Joe Montana, and so did Danny White behind Roger Staubach. Danny White isn't Steve Young, but he was a very good player. Dak had his chance. Do you remember a gentleman by the name of Tony Romo? Tony Romo was a very good quarterback. Tony Romo isn't a Hall of Famer, and he's an elite broadcaster. When Tony Romo fumbled the snap in Seattle, everyone in Dallas saw enough. They said, Tony's a Pro Bowler. Tony's a good guy. He's a leader. We can't continue to go down the road of Tony Romo. We got to move on. You get a 4 or 5 year period to prove that you can play and win. Now, maybe you stick. John Elway, it took him his last 2 seasons to win, but he went to Super Bowls. Couldn't win the big one. Brett Favre got let go from Atlanta in the trade. Atlanta had Brett Favre. They didn't see the talent in him. Good quarterbacks. Jimmy Garoppolo could not play behind Tom Brady anymore because he was too good. Garoppolo was too good. He's a starter. He goes to the 49ers. He wins 4 playoff games and plays in a Super Bowl, wins an NFC championship game. Jimmy Garoppolo won 4 playoff games and played in the Super Bowl. Not Dak. The Niners got rid of him for Trey Lance and not Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy. When it's over, it's over. And I'm kind of over talking about the Cowboys, but I want to own it. Now, that was my Super Bowl pick. The last 2 years before that, I picked Buffalo. How about them Buffalo Bills? So Buffalo, in their win in Miami, went from the 6th seed to the 2 seed. Now Buffalo's got a path to the Super Bowl. Did you see Josh Allen run the ball against the Steelers? He was running like a freight train. That 52-yard touchdown run, did you see the Steelers defenders go, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go near him. I don't want to tackle him. Wow. Josh Allen is back, everyone. Everybody was throwing him in the trash in Buffalo. Looked stupid. And how about the bad beat for Miami? Miami was 1 quarter, 15 minutes away at home to beating Buffalo. And they would have played 2 games at Hard Rock Stadium. They had to go to Kansas City in that sub-below weather and lose. They had no chance. You see Mike McDaniel all covered up, looking like the Humpty Dance guy, right? And trying to coach a game. And shout out to Miami. They were really good this year and entertaining. They just had too many injuries. I mean, the injuries they had in the second half of the year were devastating. So the Dolphins had no shot against Kansas City. But back to Buffalo. Buffalo getting that 2 seed now gives them the Kansas City game in Orchard Park, New York, where Buffalo can beat Kansas City at home. I don't have any faith. Josh Allen is 0-2. 0-2 against Patrick Mahomes. Now Patrick Mahomes is going to have to jump in. And Patrick Mahomes is going to have to jump in and go on the road and play his first ever road playoff game. How bizarre is that? All right, my son just walked in. He said, everybody needs to subscribe. Okay, this is really important here. We're not doing this just for fun, even though we're having fun. We need you to subscribe. So just click on subscribe. That's it. So we can build the number and build up the YouTube stream. So please, everybody go in there, take a second, hit subscribe, and I would appreciate that. Michael O says NFC East way too overrated. Yeah, well, who's overrated, Mikey O? The Giants? The Eagles? Yeah, the Eagles I'll get to in a minute. The Commanders? The Dallas Cowboys were the best team in the NFC East. The Dallas Cowboys should have went deep in the playoffs. The Dallas Cowboys should be here in Vegas with me in the Super Bowl. They choked. And remember, I only use the C word 5 times a year. 5 times, because if I didn't, I'd say choke every weekend. Every time an NBA guy missed a jumper, I'd say he choked. I can't do that. The Dallas Cowboys choked. So Buffalo, I like Buffalo because I think the pressure is kind of on them, but also a little bit off of them because Buffalo gets to play that game in Orchard Park, New York. If Buffalo had to get on a plane and go to Kansas City again, even though they're a better team, I think, than Kansas City, I don't think they can win at Arrowhead. They had a game won and lost with 12 seconds. When that gets in your head, you're done. How about the Houston Texans with C.J. Stroud? My son put in the tweet, is this the best rookie season of all time for a quarterback? No, that would be Dan Marino, who as a rookie took the Miami Dolphins to the Super Bowl. But did you see C.J. Stroud's numbers? Very Dan Marino-esque. I love the way the Texans are playing. I love their tight ends. They got 4 weapons on offense. They can run it, throw it, and C.J. Stroud can extend the play. I don't think they can beat Baltimore. Baltimore is a beast. Now, I was on a podcast earlier today in Baltimore with Nasty Nestor, my friend Nestor Aparicio, and they're a little nervous in Baltimore because Baltimore's had 2 number 1 seeds before and choked one time with Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson will win the MVP. And back in the day when he lost in the playoffs, he wasn't the player he is now. Even though he was an MVP, he's much better in the passing game. When he won his first MVP, he could make throws, but he was a pure Michael Vick-esque runner. Now he can throw and pass even better. So I like Baltimore to win that game. When I look at the 49ers going forward, I will tell you that this is one of the easiest paths I've ever seen. No, let me say that again if you didn't hear me. The Niners could potentially, they got a bye week. Then they're resting up for who? Who are the Niners playing at home? Anybody? Yeah. I thought you'd say that. When you look at the Niners, they're playing Green Bay. I watched Green Bay get beat by the Raiders in Vegas this year. They weren't very good. I don't think the Green Bay, even coming off that epic win against Dallas, that was their one and done. If they win that game, that's more shocking than anything that we've seen. Even Green Bay beating Dallas, it would be more shocking if they could beat the 49ers. That's a big number there. I'll get to all the numbers coming up here momentarily. But I don't think that they can win that game. I think the 49ers have that, and then they have the winner of the Lions going up against Baker Mayfield. And that's going to be a really interesting game coming up because I'm a Baker Mayfield guy. Hey, a round of applause for me for telling everybody that Baker Mayfield was a really good quarterback. And for the Raider fans that we have sitting here on the live stream, I'll admit that too. I didn't know the Raiders were going after Jimmy Garoppolo. I really didn't. We found out they were going after him and got him. But as much as I like Baker Mayfield, don't you think I would have loved Baker Mayfield as a Raider? Oh, I've been a fan of Baker Mayfield since he came into the league, went to school with my son at Oklahoma. I think Baker was born to be a Raider. Remember what he did to the Raiders with the Rams on Thursday Night Football? Remember that? So if you look at everything that we've seen with Baker Mayfield's playing with house money because he played an unbelievable game with 3 touchdowns at home. Couple of chats, man. This is getting good, man. It's going so fast. It's just flying by. Jordan Graubaugh says Buffalo is a stacked team, but I think Kansas City wins. I think a lot of people always pick Kansas City because they like the Swifties. Allen can't beat Mahomes. Watch and see. That comes from Mark McIntyre. I don't agree, Mark. I think Josh Allen can play and go there. A's, Raiders, Warriors, JT, no Kansas City or San Francisco at our stadium. We can't have them at Raiders Stadium playing, man. I agree. Anybody but Kansas City. If the Niners get there, I'll tip my cap. Niners get there, they get here. But we got to keep Kansas City out of Vegas at all cost. Augie, good to hear from you. Shout out from the Bay Area. Good content. Raiders. And one more here coming in again. Mikey O betting this round 1 out of 4 games, the road team wins. 1 out of the 4 games, the road team wins. Mark it down. And he said, JT, nice job. You nailed Baker all year. I nailed him. You better believe I did. I thought, I was all over Baker, and Baker did a great job. Now, do we have any dirty, stinking, green, drunk bird fans of Philadelphia here? How about that collapse by the Eagles? Woo! Eagles go into Tampa Bay and get routed. First off, A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown, not debating the injury, but he looks like he's unraveling. I'll leave it at that. And Nick Sirianni. How the hell do you fire Nick Sirianni less than a year ago? Less than a year ago, he coached in the Super Bowl. And he didn't lose that Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts did. He fumbled without getting touched. Remember when Jalen Hurts in the shotgun fumbled and no one touched him? A wind gust came in and took the ball. They took it the other way and the game was over. Kansas City wins. That wasn't Nick Sirianni's fault. Philadelphia is the number 1 city in the history of America of running out coaches and athletes. You've heard if you live in Philadelphia as an athlete or a coach, you don't buy, you rent, because those fans will run your ass out of town, and they're doing it again to Nick Sirianni. They love Nick Sirianni. They loved Andy Reid. They loved Donovan McNabb. No, they didn't. They liked them when they were playing well, and they were playing like shit. They ran him out of town. And now they're doing that to Nick Sirianni. How do you lose your job potentially? He didn't get fired yet. How do you lose your job before the divisional round of the postseason when you just went to the Super Bowl? Usually coaches get job security, not in Philly. Not in Philly at all. So for the Eagle fans, I think the big thing that came down was the fact that Jalen Hurts was hurt the entire year. He was hurt all year long. And then he had the finger injury on top of that. You're going to find out a lot about Jalen Hurts here, I bet you, in the next 2 to 3 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, of how injured he was there during the year. You can call that an excuse or not, but that was a big topic. And I'm going to get to the Chicago fans booing the widow of Jerry Reinsdorf. I saw that on the chat. I want to get to that before we wrap up here in a little bit. Not in a little bit. I can go for a while here. I can go as long as you want, man. I'm the long distance marathon runner. I am the late night trucker cross country of sports talk radio. Nothing slows me down. You don't know anybody who has my energy on the radio. 27 years and counting, baby. So the Eagles are like a zombie apocalypse movie. You know when the zombies are coming after everybody in The Walking Dead, and then they want to kill everybody. They want to kill the humans. And then something happens and the zombie looks at the other zombie, and then they realize that they want to kill each other, and they kill each other in the zombie movie. That's what the Eagle fans are. They just turn on each other. I lived it my whole life. I'm from Long Island, New York. I watched it. Eagle fans will put their arm around you, hug you, and buy you a beer when they're winning. And when they lose, they want to fight. They want to throw jabs and punches, and they will tap you on one shoulder and another guy will punch you in the other shoulder. And that's what they're doing now. Predictable Eagles. Predictable Eagles behavior. Complete meltdown. I wouldn't fire Nick Sirianni. Who are you going to get? Bill Belichick? Great transition to Bill Belichick. All right, everybody, jump on in. Where does Belichick land? One word. I don't need a whole diatribe or a paragraph on this. I'm asking you, by the time I do my next live stream, Belichick should be hired. Where does Belichick land? I'll go first. Bill Belichick is the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. Nick Saban retired. How was my trip to Florida? Pete Carroll, Nick Saban, and Bill Belichick. I missed all 3 of them. Not good. So what's the difference between Belichick and Don Shula? Just a couple of games. Shula's got 2 Super Bowls. Belichick's got 6. See, all you hypocrites, and not you on the live stream, but those who are going to watch this after, you all call me and tell me that Michael Jordan's 6-0 in the NBA Finals. Well, Bill Russell won 11. Isn't Bill Russell better if he won 11 and Jordan won 6? So Belichick's better than Don Shula because he's got 6 championships and 2 more as a coordinator. And I know Shula was an assistant early in his career, but you get my point. So Belichick, in a year and a half, will have as many wins and more than Don Shula, and he'll have lapped him like LeBron James has lapped Michael Jordan in every category that's ever mattered. Points, rebounds, assists. Playoffs, points, rebounds, assists. What more do you need to do as a basketball player? Points, rebound, assist, steals. Look at the numbers. LeBron lapping Jordan, but he can't be the greatest player of all time because Jordan must be. Belichick's going to be the best. I think the best fit for him, where he can win the most games the quickest. A week or two ago, I would have told you the Chargers. Chargers were the best shot. Now I'm telling you it's the Cowboys, because the Cowboys are a 12-win team with Belichick and getting Diggs back in the secondary and having another draft and free agency class with Jerry. Now, for those who say Jerry can't get along with Belichick, fair point. Jerry got along with Bill Parcells, who's above Belichick in the Parcells coaching tree. It's Parcells, and underneath him is Belichick. So I think it could work. And Belichick interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, the Atlanta Falcons have to finish the Rooney Rule, which you can. Like the Raiders tonight finished the Rooney Rule. They had 2 interviews, one with Leslie Frazier with 2 minority candidates. So now they're ready to go. They can officially hire. I don't know if that's the case with Atlanta. Maybe Arthur Blank has to conduct another Rooney Rule interview or not. I think he does. And then he can hire Bill Belichick. But Belichick to the Falcons coming in from Wheelie seems to be a under the radar pick. The problem why I don't like that pick is that Belichick had the greatest win and the worst loss in Falcons history. Remember, 28-3, I was at that game. Come on. Belichick goes to Atlanta, where Atlanta was up 28-3 in the Super Bowl. That's weird. And they're not good and they don't have a quarterback. So I would take Atlanta. I'd be shocked if it was Atlanta. The Chargers would be good for Belichick if he wants to move out west, because he'd have full control. He'd be the head coach, the GM, if he wants to do that. Jerry Jones will not give him full control, but I think if Belichick comes, instead of Jerry stepping down as the GM, Jerry could step aside in formality as the GM, claim it's him and Belichick together. Both of them haven't been great lately, right? Belichick hasn't been good in the draft, and Jerry hasn't been good. But I think when you look at what's happening with Belichick going forward, he's going to bring Josh McDaniels with him. Josh McDaniels is an outstanding offensive coordinator. No, I'm not going to die on the hill with him as a head coach. He's proven that he's not a great head coach, but he's a very good play caller. Josh McDaniels and Belichick could go to LA with the Chargers and have Justin Herbert. They got to figure out the cap, but they'd win 10 games next year. Take it from me. I'm in the AFC West. The Chargers should have won 10 games this year. They won 5. Belichick can go from 5 to 10 and then track down Shula. But I don't know if Belichick wants to break the all-time coaching record in a Chargers hoodie, right? That doesn't, right? In a Chargers hoodie? Belichick's going to the Hall of Fame. How cool would it be if Belichick breaks the record in a Washington Commanders hoodie or a Dallas Cowboys hoodie? So with Belichick here, Raider in San Diego. It's ironic that when AP has done a great job, Belichick and Harbaugh are on the table. If it was pre-McDaniels, I'd say Belichick. With all due respect, how dare you compare or mention Josh McDaniels or Antonio Pierce or anybody to Bill Belichick? I think Antonio Pierce is going to get the job and he deserves it. But don't ever compare anybody to Belichick because he's had a couple of down years. Shula didn't have a couple of great years either. Okay, so stop it. Vince Lombardi ended up going to the Commanders. Belichick is the GOAT all time. Where does he end up? More on that. Dan Lichak says Jets should talk to Belichick on the side. It'd be nice for him to F you to New England. Look, that's where Belichick, the Belichick to the Giants makes more sense than to the Jets. How about this? Don't think he needs No, look, Mikey O's getting in here on Bill being 73. Is that right, Mikey? Hit me again. Google how old Belichick is. I wouldn't say that is accurate there. I want to make sure I get that right there. But, the Chargers now are going to go after either Belichick, give him full control, or Jim Harbaugh. Belichick's 71. Belichick's 71.
He's 72 in April.
He'll be 72 in April. Thank you. So, Bill Belichick, how do you have an interview with Jim Harbaugh? Okay, excuse me. How do you have an interview with Jim Harbaugh and let him out of the building and don't give him a blank check? Am I nuts? If you invite Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, not virtually, but into your building for an interview, how dare you not hire them in 9 minutes, not 10? Here's how the interview goes with Jim Harbaugh in LA. Jim, welcome. How was your flight? How's your wife? How's your kids? Congratulations on winning the national championship. What's your vision for the Chargers and Justin Herbert? You let Jim talk for 6-7 minutes. Great, Jim. Where would you like to live in LA? Malibu, Thousand Oaks, Sherman Oaks, Manhattan Beach? Where would you like to live? We'll take care of that. Great. You want to keep a place in San Diego too? We got you set up. Okay, Jim, how much money do you like, Jim? Pick a number between 13 and 17 million. Oh, it's 17? Here's a check for 17 million for year one, and we'll give you a 10-year deal or a 6-year deal. 6-year deal. Sound good, Jim? You're the new head coach of the Chargers. Can you imagine asking Bill Belichick to come for an interview and you don't give him a job? I mean, come on. And I do know how the Rooney Rule works. And there's been a lot of coaches coming up this week. Leslie Frazier could have been interviewed by every team out there for the Rooney Rule, and you could have found multiple other coaches to bring in. But thank God now they're not doing sham interviews. The reason why Antonio Pierce got a request to interview for Atlanta and Seattle is it's not a sham. He could get those jobs. So I'm well aware of the rules and what's going on here with the rule. I know the Rooney Rule as good as anybody. I've been talking about it from day one. Okay, you have to interview 2 minority coaches. I'm clearly aware of that. And you've had weeks to do that. And you could do it in the next 2 days, bang, bang, and still hire Jim Harbaugh and Bill Belichick. Give me a break. So I think that Jim Harbaugh, if he interviews, remember they said he interviewed with the Vikings? How the hell the Vikings not give him the job? They got a good coach in Kevin O'Connell. I think that was used with Harbaugh to move up the price with Michigan, which it did. So this coaching carousel is big. In the next day or two, look for Nick Sirianni and Mike McCarthy to get fired on top of all the other vacancies that are out there. I hope that Antonio Pierce can get hired. Mr. Rogers thinks Cliff Kingsbury could be the offensive coordinator. Yeah, he could be. I think he's as a former head coach who has worked with Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray and Caleb Williams now behind Lincoln Riley. I think he'd be a really good offensive coordinator. Really good. But when you look at this next wave that's coming in, now you went from the time in the wild card round where you could only interview coaches virtually. Now you can bring them in formally here and you can get going and make a hiring this week. And I take, if you look at the divisional round, okay, that we're at now, the divisional round ends. There's a floodgate of coaches, but you can get through the Rooney Rule very easily without having sham interviews. Conduct your minority candidates and bring them in outside the building. And if they're with another team and you got to wait and you want to show dignity to that team that's preparing for a game, I understand that. But it's more than enough time right now to going out there and making a hire. And I don't mind it. The Raiders are taking their time. They're going on a big search. They know they got Antonio Pierce right there. He's in the building. If they want to talk to Harbaugh or Belichick and try to fit, that's what Al Davis did. You know what Al Davis was famous for? Al Davis would just bring people into Oakland and LA and say, get up on the whiteboard for 4 or 5 hours and then take a lunch break. And then that candidate would get up on the whiteboard again for 4 or 5 hours They'd get a 10-minute break. They'd call their wife and say, I can't come home tonight. Al Davis is keeping me overnight in Oakland, and I have a meeting with him again tomorrow. He was diligent, and he was a Hall of Famer and a Maverick. And even if he didn't hire that coach, he expunged all the knowledge out of that coach in case he played him a year or two later and picked up something with the tendencies. Mike Vrabel's available. Bill Belichick, Jim Harbaugh are all available. Those are really good coaches, everybody. The coaching carousel. Hey, lastly, before we wrap it up, that scenario that happened with the Bulls' first Ring of Honor when the Bulls fan booed Jerry Krause's widow was absolutely despicable. And you know whose fault it was? You want a real flaming hot Doritos hot take? Here we go. In 3, 2, and 1. The Bulls fans booed the widow. And they didn't boo her. They booed Jerry Krause because of Michael Jordan. Because Michael Jordan gave the worst Hall of Fame speech in pro basketball for Hall of Fame history. And in that speech, Michael Jordan, his entire speech, mocked Jerry Krause and made fun of him. And everybody in that room at the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Mass. wanted to laugh along with the billionaire Michael Jordan. And all the Chicago Bulls fans saw that. And when they brought Jerry Krause into the Ring of Honor in front of his widow, the fans remember Michael as the king, and Michael made fun of Jerry, and all those fans did the same thing Michael would have done, taking a cheap shot at Jerry Krause. It was absolutely awful and despicable. All right, here we go. A lot of people like this. My son says, get to it. These are my Modelo picks against the spread. Hold me to this. Houston at Baltimore. Divisional playoffs Saturday, January 20th. Line opened up Baltimore -9.5. We'll play it at 9. Baltimore -9. I got a feeling Baltimore's going to be rusty. I think they're going to be a little rusty because it's almost 3 weeks. Final week of the season, they rested their starters. Bye week, they rested their starters. And then they don't play till Saturday. They're not playing Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. That's going on 3 weeks. Did you see Houston play? They were a well-oiled machine. Baltimore wins the game. They do not cover the spread. I did these picks with Looney earlier today on our podcast. You can hear the exact scores. I don't want to mess up the scores, but I had Baltimore winning and not covering the spread. I think it was 28-21. I got the Ravens advancing to the AFC Championship game at home. Next game, San Francisco, Green Bay. Line opened at 9.5. We'll play it at 9.5. It could move to 10. Green Bay came off that stellar performance. So they flew from Green Bay to Dallas. Horrible weather, too cold. I know, my flights were canceled. Then back to Green Bay, freezing cold. Then flying out to Santa Clara, not around the corner. San Francisco resting Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Fred Warner, Greenlaw, all their players, Trent Williams. Too much for San Francisco, but the points are too much. Same thing. San Francisco wins. They cover the spread. San Francisco wins. Green Bay covers the spread. Detroit, Tampa Bay. Ooh, man, how great would it be for Detroit? Finally giving those fans, for our good friend Benny Jett, giving Benny Jett a playoff win. First time in 30 years they win the division. They get a playoff win. That's fantastic. Detroit, 6.5-point favorite. I love Baker, right? I'm pulling for Baker individually, but I don't think Tampa can win. I think Detroit will be up by 3 late in the game. They'll get a late touchdown, win between 7 and 10 points. Lions, no longer SOL, same old Lions. Detroit wins and they cover. And finally, Buffalo, -2.5 against Kansas City. Let's stop the Swifties. Let's stop what I told you is an obvious attempt for the NFL to try to make Kansas City America's team. I've told you that for months on this live stream. It's got to stop. And only our friends in Buffalo can do it. Because I think Kansas City can win in Baltimore. I do. I think they can win in Baltimore. I don't think Kansas City can win in Buffalo. The line opened up. Buffalo -2.5 will keep it. Total down to 45.5. Depending on the weather in Buffalo, I take the under in this game. I think Josh Allen came off a big game and he found his secret ingredient of running the football again. He'll run it more. Take the over in the prop bet wherever it lands with Josh Allen's over the rushing yard number. You would have won easily last week. I got Buffalo winning 26-21. Buffalo wins and covers the spread. Buffalo advances to take on Baltimore in the AFC Championship game. NFC Championship game will be the 49ers, Detroit Lions in Santa Clara. All right, so before dinner is served here at the Casa, Giants-Niner fan, JT, what do you think about Mahomes leaving with the helmet with the no call? Total bullshit. His helmet cracked off and he didn't come out of the game, and then they switch out helmets and they don't burn a timeout. Yeah, refs suck. The refs sucked right there. Kansas City plays by different rules. They do. And that was egregious. Another awful call this year. Vegas Raiders says, if you get it wrong, you can blame it on the Modelo. And I only thank Modelo. I've only had one Modelo here, not even a full one. Jorge Mesa, Green Bay 24, 49ers 27, my prediction. Will said, would love to see the Pack take down the Whiners. So would I. Ooh, Vegas Raider again. Baker to the Raiders in 2024? No. I think Aiden O'Connell as the backup to Baker Mayfield doesn't feel right to me. Not that Aiden's going to be the starter. I think the Raiders are going to take a big swing at the quarterback position in the draft. Big one. I think they have to. They have to find their young, mobile, athletic quarterback of the future, or at least someone to compete with Aiden O'Connell. NCW AG3. Is CJ a top 7 quarterback in the league? Top 7? Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson.
Brock Purdy.
No, Brock Purdy. Yeah, Brock Purdy's playing well. Hard to rip on. Justin Herbert, 6.
You taking Dak Prescott or Stroud?
I'm taking Stroud over Dak. Come on, man. That's fresh. I'm taking Stroud over Dak in the state of Texas.
What about Jordan Love?
Jordan Love, I'm taking C.J. Stroud over Jordan Love. So he's right on the cusp of that. Benny Jett, Lions Sunday at Ford Field. Madonna was Monday. Wow. The Material Girl. Detroit. They showed Eminem at the Lions game, Benny, but they didn't show Eminem as much as Taylor Swift. Did your stomach want to vomit when you saw Taylor Swift and Mahomes' wife doing that shake? What are they doing? Shake it off, probably. It's just awful. Do you know that Jim Brown, Chuck Bednarik, Bart Starr, Vince Lombardi, Y.A. Tittle built this sport and made this sport iconic? And then Barry Sanders came along, Lawrence Taylor, Joe Montana, and now we got Brittany Mahomes and Taylor Swift doing the wave in the suite with Kelsey's mom. To our sport, the NFL? They're going to do that to our sport just to grow it a little bit more? Look, again, my wife's a Swiftie. She is. My mom, breaking news, my mom, I didn't tell you this story, in Naples, Florida, 84 years old, doesn't watch a lot of sports, pulling for Travis Kelce. Every time he caught the ball, excited, they would show Taylor Swift. I went like this. Figure you got to be kidding me. Another one coming in here. Mr. Rogers, I think Dan Campbell's success could have helped with Mark Davis's decision to hire AP. It might. I think Mark Davis is looking at that and seeing the fact that they didn't retain Rich Bisaccia and Antonio Pierce could make it work. So, hey, last thing, man, what do you like about this platform for me? I've been on the radio longer than anybody at night. I think doing it better than anybody at night. But if they're not going to put me on 5 nights a week, which I can't do 5 nights a week on radio and 5 during the day. I can't do 10 radio shows a week a pre and post game and 3 podcasts. Can't. Would you? You wouldn't want to do that. It's too much. But how many nights a week you want the live stream? How unique do you want the live stream? Come on, you got to like this setup here in my library in my house. What do we have here? Let's show some people some cool stuff before we get out of here. Let's see. Oh, look at this. This was a ball that the Buccaneers gave me when we went there. I mentioned my mentor, Andrew Ashwood, and he was dying of terminal cancer, and he was a big, big, big sports fan. We went and saw that game, and the Bucs gave us that team ball. Pretty nice, huh? What else do we have here? To this, the Mike Ditka. I've been the MC for Gridiron Greats. That means a lot to me, Mike Ditka. I think I've shown you the brick bat with all the great Yankees on it. Benny, what do you think of that? The Yankee bat, the brick bat with all the Yankee legends. Huh? What's that? And then, hey, one more. One of my prized possessions. My son's a big guy now, but look at this picture. My son with John Wooden. Isn't that cool? That's my son, John, here is now what? How tall? 6'2"? 6'2", and that's him with the great John Wooden. All right, everybody, I enjoyed it tonight. Hope you did too. Remember, I need everybody to share this. If we're going to play into this YouTube world, we got to do it right. We got to get people to subscribe, share, subscribe, download, and share. And you got to like it. Thumbs up, like it, and then more and more people get involved, and then who knows what this will look like down the road again. Greatly appreciate you. We'll do this again, probably one more this week for sure, because it's playoff time in the NFL.
Casa.
Oh.
Ready to come to La Casa.
Oh, well, those in Vegas, I got a radio remote on Friday at La Casa Cigars at Tivoli Village, noon to 2. I think most of the people here are from outside Las Vegas. Would love to meet you there. New Age. Keep it up, Rick. Loving it. What's that?
That's Taven.
Oh, Taven, man. Good to see it. Mike. Love it, JT. Can't wait for baseball and the Yankees. Just Win 74. Show's great, JT. Do once a week. Raiders show and then a regular sports show. See, I got the big podcast with the Raiders. Raiders Roundtable. That's the big boy. That's the big one within the Raiders. So I got a Raiders podcast, man. I don't want to get in trouble with a Raiders podcast where I'm having a Modelo and I say something and I can't take it back and it lives in YouTube. So I think I'm going to avoid that. But we'll be able to talk Raiders whenever you want and every other topic that you want to bring up. Thanks to my son, John, who produced it. You'll see some of the reels and the cut-ups coming for this. And we'll see you again on YouTube Live.